Shavua Tov, Chag Sameach. Welcome to the Israel Brief, brought to you as always by Lay of the Land and hosted by me, Rolene Marks. Now I want to wish you all a Moadim L'Simcha Chag Sameach if you're celebrating Pesach. A very, very happy Easter to all our Christian viewers who celebrate Easter, and Ramadan Kareem to our many Muslim viewers who are celebrating Ramadan. And apologies for no brief last Tuesday. I unfortunately had a virus and was unable to speak, but rest assured I am back today with a longer broadcast than we usually do, but we're going to take a look at what was a very, very painful weekend for Israelis. So we're going to start with events that took place on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday around the Al-Aqsa Mosque. Now, just a little bit of background. If you know Jerusalem, if you know what the old city looks like, you've got the big gold Dome of the Rock. And to the side of the Dome of the Rock is a much smaller mosque that is in grey. That is the Al-Aqsa Mosque. And that is considered the third holiest site in Islam and is built on top of what remains of the Jewish temple. So it is a site that is extremely, extremely holy to Jews and to Muslims. Now, the Temple Mount, where the Al-Aqsa sits, is administered by the Jordanian Waqf. This is a religious authority. They are responsible for the administration. However, it does fall under Israeli control. And every year, Israel braces for violence around the Al-Aqsa Mosque during Ramadan. Over the last couple of decades, a libel has grown in the Palestinian community driven by Iran, saying that the Al-Aqsa is in danger. The Al-Aqsa isn't in danger. What Israel wants, what Jordan wants, is to maintain what we call the status quo, which is to allow for the peaceful and safe prayer for Muslim worshippers. Incidentally, non-Muslim worshippers can go up onto the Temple Mount but are not allowed to openly pray. We understand that this is a very, very sensitive flashpoint in the Middle East, and Israel ensures that every measure necessary is taken to ensure peaceful prayer. So when you hear us speaking about maintaining the status quo at the Temple Mount, what we actually mean is maintaining the safety and security of worshippers to pray safely. However, in the last couple of years around Ramadan, and certainly we saw over the end of last week, masked Palestinian hooligans came into the mosque. They brought in fireworks and collected rocks surrounding the compound. Now, what happened inside is, of course, very, very well coordinated and ensures maximum media coverage and condemnation of the state of Israel. There is a police presence on the Temple Mount during Ramadan to ensure the safe passage and ensure that Muslim worshippers who are there to pray manage to do so in peace. However, the masked hooligans started to throw rocks and fire fireworks at our police forces, who had no choice but to enter the mosque and try to quell what was becoming a very, very violent incident. Yes, there are some very uncomfortable images of Israeli police using excessive force. This is an issue that has been acknowledged by Israel police. However, this went on for several days, and on Saturday night, hundreds of Palestinians barricaded themselves inside the mosque. Israeli police did not enter. There are some accounts of worshippers on account of anonymity, speaking to camera and saying that they were there to pray, and the masked Palestinian hooligans would not let them exit. One spoke of being accompanied by an elderly lady who couldn't get out safely. In tandem with this, On a Friday morning, 34 rockets were launched from southern Lebanon towards Israel's northern communities, sending hundreds of thousands into their shelters. Now, Israel has not seen an escalation like this with Lebanon since 2006, the Second Lebanon War. And Hamas groups are believed to be responsible for the firing of these rockets. At least 25 of those rockets were intercepted by the Iron Dome defense systems. About 5 of them landed in open fields, but several did cause damage to property, including landing very, very close to a children's playground, damaging a chicken coop belonging to a farmer, and hitting several cars, including the car of an Arab Israeli who was traveling. Several people sustained light injuries. Coupled with this, about 44 rockets were fired from the Gaza Strip towards Israel's southern civilians, sending hundreds of thousands of those communities into their shelters. So you can see the well coordination of Iran, their fingerprints all over this, using the Israeli police's incursion into the Al-Aqsa Mosque as an excuse. But you have to be really, really naive not to believe that this was very, very carefully pre-planned. Back to the south, and one rocket hit a house in Sderot. Luckily, the mother and her children were safe inside their safe room. A rocket also hit a factory, causing quite a bit of damage. The IDF struck targets both in Lebanon and in the Gaza Strip in response. Now, yesterday we also had, in the early hours of the morning, some 6 rockets fired, this time from Syria, towards the Golan. Residents were told to stay very close to their shelters, and the IDF struck targets in Syria in response to that as well. Now, the weekend continued to be absolutely devastating for Israelis. On Friday morning, 2 beautiful young girls, Rina and Maya D, just 15 and 20 years old, were traveling with their mother en route to the Kinneret, that's to the Sea of Galilee, for a weekend getaway with their family. A Palestinian gunman shot at their car, causing the car to swerve off the road and engage in an accident. Palestinian gunmen then fired point blank at the 3 women, killing Maya and Rina. And as we speak, Lucy D is in a coma in hospital in Jerusalem. She is fighting for her life. If you want to pray for her, her Hebrew name is Leah Bat Tzipporah, and she needs all of our prayers. The 2 young girls, 2 sisters who are both British and Israeli citizens, were killed. Unfortunately, their poor father, who had turned his car around, had to see this image of his wife being airlifted to hospital, and his 2 daughters by then had been murdered. The UK ambassador to Israel confirmed the dual citizenship of both girls, and yesterday, in what was the most heart-wrenching of funerals, the 2 were laid to rest in Kfar Etzion. I don't think any of us who watched that funeral will ever forget the images of 2 sisters holding on to the bodies of their 2 sisters as they wept. On Saturday night, another terror attack, this time in central Tel Aviv. A group of tourists from Italy were strolling down Tel Aviv's promenade when a Palestinian terrorist rammed his car into them. 7 were injured, and 1 Italian civilian, Alessandro Parini, a 35-year-old lawyer from Rome, was killed. This has brought Israelis and Italians standing together in solidarity, and on Sunday, our Foreign Minister, Eli Cohen, along with Italy's ambassador to Israel, went to visit those who were injured. The Italian Prime Minister said that all of Italy condemns violent Palestinian terrorism and stands in solidarity with Israel. Meanwhile, protests on Saturday night that have become a regular event in the Israeli diary since the 7th of January continued, but included a moment of silence for the victims of terror, as well as prayers and songs in their memory. Early yesterday morning, the Turkish President Erdogan phoned President Herzog. The two discussed the rise in violence in the region over the last couple of days and stressed the importance of maintaining the status quo on the Temple Mount. What is concerning is that Erdogan had spoken to President Raisi of Iran and affirmed that all Muslims should stand up to what he called Israeli aggression against Palestinians. In the meantime, Israel's police commissioner Kobi Shabtai has called on all Israelis who have licensed firearms please to carry. The Prime Minister yesterday called up all battalions of the border guard to patrol Jerusalem. I was in Jerusalem yesterday. You can see a significant increase in the amount of police around the city, and the IDF will also be deploying extra battalions in and around Tel Aviv as well. As expected, the United Nations will convene a meeting of the Security Council to discuss the violence. We are yet waiting for condemnation by the United Nations on the brutal murders of 2 British Israeli civilians and an Italian civilian as well. So this brings me to the end of today's special report on the events of the past weekend. It has been extremely difficult for Israel. We are in pain as we bury more of our beautiful children, the third set of siblings to be murdered by Palestinian terrorists this year, and the pain is excruciating. We are, however, united. Nothing brings Israelis together more than the threat of a common enemy, and that is that enemy seeking to destroy us. That brings me to the end of this broadcast, but don't forget to check out our webpage at www.layoftheland.online. Our Facebook page is at Luttel's site. Now, Facebook is clamping down on this kind of content, so if you do see us, please like us, follow us, share our content, invite your friends too as well. Our YouTube channel is at The Israel Brief. Please consider liking, subscribing by clicking on that red subscribe button and sharing our content. Let's get the news from Israel you are not hearing in your media out as much as possible. And we're on Twitter at Lay of the Land 5. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, and I leave you with one message. Am Yisrael Chai. The people of Israel live.